Way up north, to Alaska. Way up north, to Alaska. North to Alaska, go north, the rush is on. North to Alaska, go north, the rush is on. Big Sam left Seattle.
Okay, we are now simulcasting live the last 2.5 hours of the syndicated radio broadcast at prisonplanet.tv. Coming up in the next hour, I will continue with calls, and I want to get to one of the most important subjects of the radio broadcast today. New York Times, Obama making plans to use executive orders. And our story's breaking this down at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Obama declares he will rule by authoritarian decree. Kurt Nemo, Infowars.com today. Another story by Paul Joseph Watson. Obama breaks yet another campaign promise. And in this article, Paul wrote, make sure you queue up for next hour the video in there where he promised not to have these executive orders or signing statements. That's in the story. Obama breaks yet another campaign promise. There's also another story here. Obama eyes executive orders to circumvent Congress. We're going to be going over that today. I also have a group of important articles here where Newsweek, when you see Newsweek and Time start targeting you multiple times a week, it signifies a larger order to go after a group of people. Obama Information Czar calls for banning free speech. You know about that. And that dovetails with Newsweek. Black helicopters over Nashville, which attacks myself and the Tea Party. And Watson's counter article, go back to sleep, there's no New World Order. And we have the newest article that came out the day after that, on Friday, Know Your Conspiracies. Newsweek's guide to today's trendiest, hippest, and least likely fringe beliefs. So they make it like it's a little trendy thing. No, this isn't trendy, what we do. This is life and death. This isn't a joke or a game. So that is coming up as well here. I want to break down Barack Obama and where he stands in the world. We're going to do that after this short 4-minute video from Russia Today with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, the former head of policy at Treasury, the former editor of the Wall Street Journal, someone who's a real paleoconservative or constitutionalist, just to set the tone of where we are as a society. So let's go ahead and play this clip. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and I'll break down the fact that I believe they're getting ready to launch a false flag staged assassination attempt on Barack Obama. Stay with us.
Well, get ready for the crackdown. The U.S. is now officially known as a police state. At least that's according to Paul Craig Roberts. He's a columnist and a former Reagan administration official, and he joins me live from Panama City, Florida. Paul, thanks so much for joining me. So you've said that U.S. President Obama is continuing Bush-era policies and that the United States is essentially a police state. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, yes. We have this case of Afia Siddiqui, who is an American citizen who was kidnapped and held in the Bagram military base in Afghanistan for 5 years, secretly tortured, denied all her constitutional rights. The whole thing was totally outside all known American law. And now we've had the Dennis Blair, the head of national intelligence, announce that the United States government has a list of Americans that it will assassinate abroad. So the government has announced it's going to kill its own citizens without arrest, without trial, without conviction of a capital crime. It's just going to shoot them down somewhere. Well, these two things together are the definition of a police state. And we have a number of constitutional scholars in our most distinguished law schools who have said that these proposals not only are totally illegal under American law, but constitute war crimes under the Geneva Conventions. And what else? How else would you define a police state?
And so, you know, I think that's really interesting, Mr. Roberts. I mean, especially because President Obama has spoken out against so many of these things, including torture. And, you know, he's repeatedly said that he wants to close down Guantanamo Bay. So why do you think nothing has changed and he's continuing these Bush-era policies then?
That's a very good question. There's no difference so far between his administration and the Bush-Cheney regime. And so what we see is that there's been a coup, a power grab. The law means nothing to the government. It operates totally outside the law with contempt of the law. And what's most amazing is that Dennis Blair, this is not my opinion, he went to the United States Congress and told one of the most important committees, the Committee on Intelligence, that the United States government now has a list of Americans that it will murder. Well, how does this differ from Joseph Stalin?
And so, I mean, how is this all possible? How can the United States just simply disregard international law? And what should be done to stop this?
I don't know how it's possible. I don't know how Joseph Stalin was able to murder all the heroes of the Bolshevik Revolution. I don't know how Hitler was able to take over Germany and completely flush the law, but that's what's happening here. And we see, we have these statements from these distinguished American legal scholars that this is not only completely against the Geneva Conventions and the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, which requires a due process. But if you announce you're just going to murder people, there's no due process. And so I don't know what's going on. I don't understand how this happens or why the American people are so insouciant and inattentive. They just sit and take it. I don't understand why the Congress, when they were told this, didn't order this guy's arrest. I mean, we have a criminal, the head of national intelligence, who comes to the Congress and says we're going to murder American citizens. Nothing happens.
Well, Mr. Roberts, I want to thank you so much. You're clearly very passionate about this. According to Mr. Roberts, the United States turning into a police state.
Glenn Beck. I have taken a particular interest in this man because when he showed up on the scene in 2002 on talk radio, he was clearly an actor. And then I saw him over the years always pose as a constitutionalist, as a patriot, but at every key juncture point when Ron Paul had a chance to win the Republican primary, Glenn Beck came out and said he's dangerous, he's bad, used the army against him and his supporters. Even last year, over and over again, calling Ron Paul a kook. And I've seen him do countless other things. You know, he'll do some good on the health care. He'll do some good on Acorn. He'll do some good on some key areas. But overall, he's there as a gatekeeper to be the leader of the patriot movement. And then every time you get somebody real like Deborah Medina, who could clearly win the Republican primary and then hands down beat the Democrats, all the pollsters agree with that, who will get rid of property tax, who will control the border, and would send shockwaves into all the other states, already is, having other people run through the Tea Party movement. We have Republicans being booed at the Tea Parties, Rick Perry, Cornyn, others a year and 2 months ago here in Texas. Then the Republicans come in and start taking it over. Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Sarah Palin, and others. You have Palin coming into Texas, endorsing Perry over Deborah Medina. She would definitely win if Palin would have endorsed her. So to control us, they have to pose as us, just as Cass Sunstein at the White House says. Because the establishment has no credibility in the controlled right or the controlled left. So they have to pose as the revolutionaries to be able to maintain control of the population. Now, on key issues of 9/11 truth, of FEMA camps that they have bills in Congress for, that they admit they've built, the civilian inmate labor camp program, Army.mil. You've got all of this admitted on record. And then you have Glenn Beck on subject after subject, building up the hype for a month. And I believe the FEMA camps are real, he said, and then coming out and discrediting it. Exactly as I predicted he would, even with the very fake camps that we exposed over a decade ago. I predicted he would use those fake camps, and he did indeed do that. A, he's either completely copying everything on this show, or B, I knew he would go with what had already been debunked, and I understood his mindset to such a level we were able to accurately predict that. But bottom line, he's a teleprompter reading puppet. Now, again, when Bush is in, the Republicans are the face of the New World Order and the establishment.